It looks like we are live. I am so excited because this woman has just bounced off with a stand that she took. And so I want all of us, because we've been talking a lot about this in the classroom, about how we need to take a stand and how we need to be brave. Well, today we get to talk to someone who's been both. And so I want to encourage you to start sharing the news that we have Reinette Senum in the classroom, and we are going to talk about freedom, and we're going to talk about bravery, and we're going to talk about the importance and the value of history, because I know she's very connected to her ancestry, and that is so important that we do that. Because, okay, so before I continue rambling on, I am going to start the recorder for our podcast, our pod class, and we're going to start. Okay, hold on a second. So we are, okay, so for those of you who are joining us on our pod class, I am so excited that we're all together. Today, we're going to be talking about taking a stand and being brave with Reinette Senum. I'm really excited to learn and grow with her. So fasten your seatbelt. Oh, it's time to dance. Here we go.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be. I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening and viewing friends. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening and viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Now, there comes a time in everybody's life that we need to take a stand. If you don't take a stand for something, you'll fall for anything or everything. Well, today, not only did Reinette Senum, she is, I forgot to say, you're formerly the former mayor of Nevada City, California. Yes, and she took a stand. And she took a stand, and that completely changed the position or the direction that she was leading and going in. But you know what? Sometimes when those things happen, it's because you needed to move out to do other things, and you're called for bigger and greater things. Has that happened to you, where you're being called and you know you're being called, but you stay in your comfort zone, and then something major happens that says, okay, now you got to go out there? Well, that is what happened. And so today we're going to learn how to be brave with Reinette Senum. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Reinette is here to do just that. Welcome, Reinette. And I'm concerned that you might be muted. It's been happening lately. You're not muted on our end.
So I'm unmuted now.
Okay, very good. I don't know how that's happening all of a sudden. It's like woo-woo. Yeah. So welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, Lillian. Thank you.
And you are up in the crack of dawn. So share a little bit about your background.
Coffee, just so you all know.
I know. So share a little bit about your background and what led you to become a foghorn.
Right, exactly. Well, I was the mayor as of a week ago, a little tiny Northern California town called Nevada City, and we're in the Sierra Mountain range of the foothills. And this is an area that I was raised here since I was 4 years old. I have lived in different places as a young adult, but this has been my home. And about 15 years ago, I really, was looking around the planet and very concerned for the direction we were headed in. And I decided that if I was going to invest in anything, I'd basically invest in my community, and, and really start working on creating an organic farmers market, and making sure that we were more resilient, and we had solar, and that we're just much more networked and connected as a community. And in 2008, I decided to run for city council. I got elected. I actually got the most votes, I think, in the history of our 150 years as a city, about 84% approval. And then I was on I had my first term, and I was mayor in 2010. And then I went off the council for 4 years. I thought I had things, pretty set up for the city. And then I wasn't very happy with what I was seeing for those 4 years. When I was off the council, I ran again in 2016, and I was reelected. And I just finished that term, and I was actually reelected again for a third term, and had every intention of completing that third term. But then the virus hit, and interestingly enough, it was back in January that I really became aware of COVID, and it was one of those things where it just caught my attention. H1N1, SARS, MERS, none of those things caught my attention like seeing what was happening in China. And what was really grabbing my attention was the virus, but also how China was responding to it. And I was actually very, very concerned, because I saw a lot of human rights violations, which is not uncommon for China, but it was very alarming. And so I started warning our city staff and even county officials, saying, hey guys, there's this thing called the coronavirus, and I don't know the virulence of the virus.
Sure.
But what I can tell is that we're going to have some political, economic, supply chain interruptions. There's a huge impact coming our way. And it kind of felt to me like the tide was pulling out and pulling out and pulling out. And we're waiting for that big wave to come in. And I feel like the wave hasn't really quite crashed even yet. So early on, actually, myself and my partner of 12 years, we started getting our N95 masks together, our UV lights, stocking up, like really getting ready for something quite serious, like a real pandemic. And at that point in time, I was watching Johns Hopkins University updates every day, and they were saying that this virus was going to double every 5 to 6.4 days. Back then, that meant that this virus was going to double to a point where it would infect the whole entire planet by the end of April, which is extraordinarily concerning. And so even my partner and I started to self-quarantine before our Governor Newsom did a stay-at-home order. We were just like, let's not go out, let's not subject ourselves, let's not expose ourselves. And we did that. And so when the orders came for us to self-quarantine, it's like, great. In fact, I really felt we should have been putting our masks on earlier. We should have been quarantining earlier, right? It was during that unknown period that we really should have been even more frugal and conservative, because we just did not have the data. Correct. So this town is a town full of activists, where we have like the largest environmental film festival in North America, and the environment and healthy living and eating and getting outdoors is really, really important to us. And we have a lot of retired people, but they're not really retired. They don't have their regular careers, but they're very involved in the community and trying to make a better world. And so when it was time to do the stay-at-home orders, we all did it happily. I did it happily. I thought it was a good move and so on. And luckily, and the objective at that time was to flatten the curve, right? Make sure that our hospitals were not inundated. And again, we were concerned about that. So we did all that, and we flattened that curve. And Nevada County is this very elongated county. And in fact, the other side of the county is over the Sierra Mountain Range, right? It's like in a geographically completely different area. And we did have one COVID death there. It was an 80-some-year-old who was battling cancer. And that's the only death we've had in this county. We've had right now about 160 cases the whole entire time, positive cases. So it has not really hit us. And then what happened was Governor Newsom made this mask mandate. And it was statewide. And I was like, this is, first of all, I've learned enough about masks, like many of us, right? We're all becoming mask experts over the last few months. Yeah. And interestingly enough, I already knew a lot about masks as far as they can do damage, because I've been a house painter for 35 years. I've done many different jobs, tons of different jobs, but house painting's always been this little backbone job I've always had. And about 20 years ago, when I was living in LA studying filmmaking and painting houses, I started developing this constant hack at nighttime, this constant cough that was persistent, wouldn't go away. I finally had to break down, go to the doctor. And ultimately he said, you've got what's called industrial bronchitis. And that's from wearing your mask incorrectly. And sometimes I'd wear my mask all day. And by the end of the day, I'd have this, you could see paint coming into my nose from around where it was leaking in. And many times I wear a dirty mask. I've worn it for a few days. I've worn it for a week. It was the only thing I had in my truck. Oh, it'll be fine. What's the big deal? It's still protecting me. Well, it wasn't. It actually caused damage, enough damage where 20 years later, I'm still coughing at nighttime, whether I'm painting or not. And so I knew that if you don't wear your mask correctly, A, it won't protect you, and B, it can cause harm. So that was the first lens that I looked through. So there is that. So there's this mask mandate. It is statewide. And it was done by the governor, and it was not through the due process of law. Well, also through all these entire weeks while I was the mayor, we were having our Zoom calls with our county officials, the head of the public health department, Dr. Ken Cutler, our mayors, our city managers, and we were having these weekly Zoom calls. And I kept asking from the get-go, what's the end goal here? What's the end game? What is it we're shooting for? Like, when's is enough? And I kept being told that, basically it's till we get 0 cases. I'm like, 0 cases for how long? And how do you know? Are you going to be testing everyone all at the same time and for days at a time? I don't follow this. And, or I was finally told, well, actually, Reinette, Nevada County has very low herd immunity. Until your herd immunity gets up, you can go back to stage 1 at any time. Well, to let you know, Nevada County has the lowest vaccination rate in California and possibly the nation, though that has bumped up quite a bit because now it's mandatory for schools, for students.
Tragic.
But basically they're holding us over a barrel. And I really felt like they're not extorting, but putting pressure on us to conform. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem like a realistic measurement, and you're also not letting the public know what the measurement is. We don't know what we're going for here. And so I also kept asking you guys, we have to stop looking at this through a myopic lens. And this whole shutdown and the stay-at-home orders and now the mask mandates, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. This has repercussions. So what's the cost benefit analysis here? Like, what is this costing us? And I was told by our Dr. Ken Cutler, head of the public health department, that, Reinette, we really won't know that until we look back years from now. Well, that's not true, right? I mean, we have actuary tables. We can actually do a cost benefit analysis. And we do know quite simply that every $10 to $25 million in economic loss costs 1 life. And people will ask, well, how do you mean? How can you lose a life? It's like, well, that means that person loses a job. They can become depressed. They may forego medical treatment. They might start drinking and increasing their drug usage. There's a host of different things that comes with economic loss. Well, California has lost billions and billions of dollars, right? Who's crunching those numbers? And I kept saying, who's crunching those numbers, right? We lost an 80-some-year-old on the other side of a mountain range, but
and they had cancer.
And they had cancer, right? And the other thing is that on the other side of the mountain range, a 14-year-old girl committed suicide because of the stay-at-home orders, and she didn't have the tools to know that we'll get beyond this someday. And so you have to look at lost years of life, right? So that 80-year-old probably lost a few years, but that 14-year-old lost 70 years of her life.
Correct.
You've had other children in this side that I've talked to some paramedics, who we also know have committed suicide. That's not getting out. And unless it's a COVID death, it doesn't seem to matter. And so I'm saying to everyone, like, look at you guys, we have to start looking at the repercussions. We have to look at the suicide watches. For instance, my partner has been a therapist for 30 years. And over her 30 years of being a professional therapist, she's had no more than 5 active suicide watches. She now has 6 active suicide watches, and she's had them for weeks and weeks. And we have other therapists who have children on active suicide watch. This is not normal. And so we have that. We know that we have a 35% increase in parents bringing their children into the hospitals because they've been abused. That a 35% increase is huge, especially when you realize that this is not just like, oh, they have a bruise. This is generally, they're so bad off, the parents think they're either dead or close to death.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why they bring them into the hospital. So these are serious injuries, right? So you have that. We know drug addiction is up. We know depression, anxiety. So what happened was, as the mayor, when this mask mandate happened, all of a sudden I started getting bombarded by phone calls from, because as the mayor, people are calling me, they're like, Reinette will do something. You know, I'm getting the phone call. And they start saying, Reinette, you know, I hear I'm going to be cited if I don't, you know, enforce this. Am I going to get fined? Will they close down my business? Will I lose my liquor license, my beer and wine license? I had women, and this also comes from therapists, plus personally, they've been speaking to me, women who come to me say, look at, when people are sexually violated and raped, they're generally muffled. And when you are forced to put a mask on your face willingly, this triggers people. And I've had many women say they're in their cars, they're trying to go into the grocery store and they're crying, they're trying to gain, you know, their composure, and they're panicking because they're being re-traumatized.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing that. I'm hearing about the suicides, the depressions, the anxiety attacks people are having, right? The business owners who are losing their staff who are working in restaurants because they can't work in the heat, wearing the mask, they're getting headaches, they're not feeling good, so they quit. So we have businesses who have to consolidate or close their businesses, or they can't hire anyone because no one wants to work under those conditions.
Right.
So what ends up happening is we're really dealing with death by 1,000 cuts in our community, right? Oh, it's a little bit, you know, economic loss here, a little economic loss there, oh, a little chip away here, chip away there. But in the end, Lillian, it destroys your community as you know it. We now have people who won't go into town because they're afraid people aren't wearing masks and they're going to be exposed.
Exactly.
People who aren't willing to go into town because they don't want to have to wear a mask because they get triggered, or they just don't want to, or they just don't feel comfortable, or they have health conditions. The ramifications are huge, and our elected officials from the get-go were not looking at anything but the COVID numbers. Our health department turned into the COVID department. And so for weeks and weeks and weeks, I kept saying, you guys, we have to look at these other ramifications. We had our other city mayors is also saying, look at, we're also getting these complaints and we have to look at this. And our county wouldn't do it. So out of desperation, and of course, the media is not looking at any of these numbers.
Yeah.
So out of desperation, I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to once again resort to my Facebook page, and I'm going to have to yell loud. And so when that order came down from the governor, that there's just going to be a statewide mask mandate, at that point in time, I went to our police chief and I said, are you enforcing this? He said, well, A, he goes, it's unconstitutional. B, there's no penal code. There's no law that comes with this, right? This does not go through the normal legislative process. There is a due process, right?
Right. Correct.
And there was no due process. And yes, there's a state of emergency, but the state of emergency officially ended when we began to reopen officially. You just can't go and have a state of emergency in perpetuity. This now will be getting battled out in the courts, by the way. There's like 16 different court cases against the governor right now. So this is not just me saying this.
And all over there are cases too. So not just in California. This is, and people aren't taking note of that. They're just falling in line with what they're hearing and obeying from the media.
The media is not telling them that. So, right. So this is the thing is people are like, oh, this Reinette, she's lost her mind. It's like, no. There are district attorneys. There are attorneys out there throughout the state of California. There's at least 16 court cases now. There's many, many more behind that. So this is not just me out there in the left field making these things up. Like there's legal teams who are backing me up as well. Right. Yeah. And so I decided to shout on my Facebook page, and I was loose with my caps keys. I was using capitalizations of letters like, hey, so you know.
You were yelling.
I was yelling. In fact, Fox News
all caps.
She was very loose with her caps keys. And when I said, oh, finally my epitaph on my grave is going to be, she was very loose with her caps buttons, you know. I didn't color within the lines.
Yes.
And so I shouted because at this point in time, I'm like, I have nothing to lose because I know people don't see this, but I can. The fabric of our community, the economy, right? Everything that we know is absolutely being destroyed in the name of protecting ourselves from COVID. But the solutions were going to do more damage than the virus itself. Correct. And so at this point in time, I'm like, look at, we're going to cease to be a town in a year's time. And this is not an exaggeration, just from the economic impacts alone. And then when you look at the fabric of our community, and we'll get into more of that shortly, we've been decimated, absolutely decimated, the spirit and the fabric and everything. And so I took to the Facebook page knowing I might make a stir, and it did. And I was trying to get attention. Of course, the headlines in the LA Times and the Sacramento Bee and the San Francisco Chronicle were all absolutely misleading. It was like, Nevada City Mayor says, don't wear your mask. I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not what I was talking about. What I was talking about is we've just witnessed an overreach of government, and that your governor does not have the power to do this. And even when there's executive orders, they have to be backed up, right, by the data that gives you the credence, right, to actually do that in the first place, to make the executive order. And this wasn't happening. It was a total overstep of government. So I was just letting people and businesses know who had been contacting me, a flood of them, saying, hey, just to let you know, as you go about your day, there's no law. You can't get penalized. You can't get cited. You know, if you don't need to want to wear a mask, you still don't have to wear a mask. This is not a mandate. This is not a directive or an order.
Yeah, but they were putting people in jail for not complying. So,
well, yeah, it depends on where you are, right?
Yeah.
And again, this is the stuff that's going to be battled out in court. The problem is that this will be battled out in court and more than likely will win. But by that time, you're going to have in your wake all of these communities that are going to be absolutely bankrupt and decimated. And it doesn't matter if the court is, if we're successful in the court cases, the damage has been done. So, so it was really a huge thing. People got really upset and angry, saying you had no right to do this. And I'm like, look, I understand y'all don't like me right now. And I love this community. I've been investing in this community, and I can clearly see we're going to be getting destroyed, and your elected officials aren't asking questions. This is the most impactful decision any governor in the state of California has ever made. And we aren't allowed to question the narrative. We aren't allowed to ask, can we please see the data that is backing up your decision making? And the questions that I have asked on those Zoom calls with county officials and elected officials, I'm literally muted. And when I unmute, I'm muted again. And when I unmute myself, I'm muted again. Or I'm told, Reinette, in order to get into these deep blades of the grass, why don't we just hold off until this Zoom call's over? You stay on, everyone will leave. And what we'll do is we'll dogpile on you, 2 or 3 of us.
That's
and
right.
We'll basically quietly shut you down.
Yeah.
And, you know, and people don't realize that I took an oath to the US and California Constitution. And part of the job of an elected official is to keep the public informed. It is my job to give you information that you may not get otherwise. And what I've been trying to say to my constituents is, look at guys, I understand the COVID danger over here. I'm very clear on that. But I also am getting all these other layers, right, of danger, of all these other things that you guys aren't hearing about. You're not getting the phone calls. I am. And so when I look at the COVID topic and the decision making, I see that it's being made through that lens and that lens only. And that's actually not serving us in the end. And you have to look through all these other lenses. And those are the lenses of the business owners who can't reopen, the business owners who can't get the staff to hire them to reopen, the women who've been raped and are being triggered, right? Those who do have asthma and OCPD and other health issues who are going into the stores as they are allowed legally to do because they have an exemption for health reasons, psychological reasons, and they're being targeted, they're being shamed. And there has been shaming the other way with people who are wearing masks, but really for the most part, those who aren't wearing masks are being shamed. They're being questioned. You have to justify, tell us why you don't have a mask on. Well, that's against HIPAA, right? There's violations where you cannot ask a person and justify why you don't have a mask on, or have to explain your health reasons. And so basically all these violations are happening. We have what's called OSHA laws, right? This is around properly wearing your mask, and employees must make sure that their employers are wearing their masks properly. Or sorry, employers must make sure their employees are wearing their masks properly. Well, that's been thrown out the door. That's been, all of a sudden, it doesn't matter. Just put your mask on and shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we do hear people say, well, you look at surgeons and nurses wear masks all the time. So what's the problem? It's like, well, first of all, they're trained in how to wear their masks, A. B, when they are wearing their masks, they're usually in a surgical room which is oxygenated. They actually push oxygen, extra oxygen into the room to compensate for the lack of oxygen in your mask. They've been trained, they've washed their hands, they've put their masks on a specific way. They don't touch their masks. They don't move their masks. If they do, they replace them. They wear their mask no more than a half hour to an hour. And when they go from one room to another room, they replace that mask with a new mask.
Correct.
And then when they're done with that mask, they put it into a biohazard bag, which, by the way, none of our masks or gloves or PPE equipment or gear is ever put into biohazard bags. If they're so deadly with the virus, why aren't we, disposing of them properly? So these are the things that you are supposed to do by law to ensure an employee is kept safe from harm. And that has been thrown out the door. I'm like, well, why would we harm a person with a mask to save ourselves from COVID? I mean, why would you want to, why is the solution going to cause its own amount of harm? So the reasoning behind this is not making sense. And ultimately, Lillian, I have come to the conclusion that this absolutely is not about our health. Otherwise, there'd be completely different decision-making going on.
Well, you and I didn't talk about this prior to coming live in the classroom, but I don't do politics and I don't do sports. I do life. I'm a certified life coach, excuse me. And we focus on spirit, mind, and body, healthy living. So we are very like-minded there. But I don't do politics because I believe that there are certain topics that divide us. They divide us. As soon as you hear, like I have a new group that's called I Am 99. I was saying I wanted to share that with you today as well. I Am 99. I don't care what you believe in, what color you are, what denomination, what political value, if you're, whatever it is. We're coming to this I Am 99 as the 99% of us who are being controlled and manipulated by the 1%. Because if they continue to divide us and we're fighting amongst ourselves,
Right.
then we're making their job easier. And so the I Am 99 movement is about solutions. What can we do? What you did is very costly. A lot of people wouldn't even do it. And that's the problem. People know if I speak out, I might lose my job. I might lose my sponsors. I might lose, because you've seen Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, and some Dr. Drew, I think that's his name. I've never met him before. Say, don't wear your mask. That's just, it's just the common flu. It's the common cold. And the next day you hear an apology sounding like a robot because they are fearful to lose their sponsors. I, on the other hand, have like-minded sponsors and they can't control me. And so if they want to be a part of this, they can be a part of this, but they need to know what my platform is, which is, and so they have made it political to wear a mask. They have made it political to be Black. They have made it political to be white. They have made it political if you like Trump, if you don't like Trump, if you donate, if you speak up. And so little by little, I just have this vision of the 1% that controls all the media, all the pharmaceuticals, all the stuff that we love, all the stuff that we consume, all the stuff and we're being enclosed, and then we're getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and people are getting more and more scared. And how do you control the masses? If I were in a dark theater and the theater was full and I stand up in the back and I yell, fire! Nobody's going to fact check. They're going to all run. Mm-hmm. They're going to all run. And that's what we're doing now. That's right. The 1% is yelling fire and we're not fact checking. And when we do fact check and we're looking at the media's information, that's misinformation. It's not the right information. And God bless the people that say, I read this, but I always know they got it from CNN, NBC, ABC. They got it from, some other source that is not all the people that don't get controlled by the media and controlled by their sponsors. And so that I Am 99 and I we're going to be having our first meeting virtually on Zoom to come up with solutions. Right. And so with that, you have been to the situation where you're now the former mayor of Nevada City, California. And that must have been a very difficult situation for you and to step down from your your duties. It must have been very, because you never retire. You never retire from service. You just switch. So what's going to be next for you? How are you going to, because when you walk away, the people are going, the one person we trust is no longer there. Who do we trust?
Right. Well, yeah, it was a very difficult situation, decision, I should say, to make. And I actually really seriously started thinking about it many, many weeks ago, because I was really getting concerned with the fact that I felt that our elected officials were not being forthcoming with what was really going on. They were not doing their duty and asking the questions, the difficult questions, the uncomfortable questions that needed to be asked. And they were just really just following suit, and right. There was nothing.
They're getting paid, but the people that are, having to do this stuff aren't getting paid.
No, I'm a volunteer, right? So even as a mayor, I'm a volunteer, and that's one reason why I'm a house painter, is I can go out there and paint, and then I can, work real hard, paint a whole house on my own, and then I don't work for a few weeks so I can do my volunteer work. And that's just how I've made it work for myself, and I like that, because again, nobody owns me, right? And I have made sure that nobody owns me. And I have to tell you, I go about my day every day, and it actually feels like a dream world, or more like a nightmare world. Even now, as off the council, everywhere I go, people are pulling off their masks. And just what you said, Reinette, thank you so much. I wish I could speak up, but I have to keep my job. Reinette, I got to keep my business open. Reinette, my board, or my employees, or my clients. Reinette, I really, I don't want to. I heard it again yesterday from all these different people. I really don't want to wear my mask, but I have to in order to work.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know. I mean, who wants to be muffled?
Yeah.
Who wants to be muffled? Who wants to not be? We no longer can recognize our community members.
No.
So here we are, this wonderful, small little, used to be tight-knit community. And now we go out and we can't see each other. We don't recognize each other.
That's part of the plan. That's part of the plan.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
To
So
divide. That's another division, Reinette. I mean, so the 99%, if you look at the 99%, and we were divided, if you go back to biblical times, we were divided with religion and belief and all of that, and dogma, and that 99% became 49% and a half. And then they divided us again with, whatever color that you have, 24/75, then they divide us again. Are you gay? Are you straight? Are you lesbian? Whatever.
Right.
Oh, they're going to divide us again. And everybody's against each other. And
That's
we're doing the work. That 1% can control it when we're down to 1.5%, because everybody's fearful, not even talking to each other, because now I hate you because you posted you love this person, or you love that person, or you believe in this person,
or you're not wearing your mask.
Or you're not wearing your mask. That was that's where I said, that's it for me. It's not that so first they said, don't wear a mask. You don't need to wear a mask.
I know. They're like, it's not safe.
But then they said, ooh, wear a mask. So I stayed home and we ordered everything online. I just stayed home because I don't want to wear a mask, because I have asthma and I control asthma with vitamin C. And I don't want to get back on those drugs. I don't want to get back on those things. And so when I wear a mask, I get that PTSD feeling that I cannot breathe, because I know what it's like not to be able to breathe. And so when that happened, I'm thinking, we have got to do something. So then they say, oh, when the pandemic started going down, now they're taking off their masks. They're going out to the beach. We're beginning to become social again. And all of a sudden, oh, there's an outbreak again. No, you wear a mask for another person.
I know.
And if you don't wear a mask, you're selfish, you're
care.
vain, you don't care, and that is how, and everybody goes, we hear and obey. Wear your mask for me, not for you. You're selfish. And that divides us even more. And God forbid we show facts from Judy Mikovits or virologists or
Dr. Batar, Dr. Cahill.
Correct. And by the way, Judy Mikovits is coming back into the classroom. She just wrote another book. It's going to be, it probably should be out there already. It's called The Case Against Masks, 10 Reasons Why Masks should be limited. And for the first time in our lifetime, healthy people are quarantined.
Right. And I've heard people say, oh no, during the Black Plague, people were quarantined. I'm like, maybe they were healthy. I'm like, maybe that's true, right? But they weren't part of a global economy, right? They weren't part of this world. And when they were maybe quarantined, healthy people were quarantined during the Black Plague, they had ranch animals. They were growing their own food, right? They were actually self-sustaining. Those days are over. We are completely interconnected. So to sit there and separate us out and expect that we in our apartment complexes are going to be able to survive without being part of the world, the global economy, is absolutely not realistic. And again, we only speak to house arrest. Let's just call it what it is. It's house arrest.
Correct.
Mask wearing, 6 foot social distance, which don't know where the science is there.
Well, the science is that a sneeze or a virus knows where to stop. It stops at 5.9 feet because, you know, they've figured that out. That is BS.
In other countries, it's 3 feet. So the virus in the other countries knows that we can only travel.
Well, that is super intelligent viruses there. So that's what I'm saying, is that people don't know that my sneeze go 17 feet and beyond because I've broken every record there is. And so that is what people are not thinking on their own, and they're hearing and obeying. And, you know, I was talking to Jason Stevenson, who's a wonderful guy in Australia. He does the sleep with Jason Stevenson, or sleep meditations with Jason Stevenson. And he and I were having a conversation on the air, as we normally do, and off the air as well. But on the air, I said, you know, I've always said, you can't argue facts. You can argue opinions. And he pointed something out to me that was like, I can't say that anymore. They're twisting the science.
Oh, okay. So that's the other thing. So,
I woke you up a little bit more, didn't I, Reinette?
Like, Reinette, the data doesn't lie. The data is, I'm like, well, maybe the data doesn't lie, but how people put the data in, right?
Correct.
Creates the lie. And so there's a few different things.
The testing. The testing is for failure. You're being okay.
Right. So we now have individuals who are sending in the nasal swabs, and they're coming back positive, and they never put the nasal swab in their nose. That's a bad thing right there, right? So people have been testing that one. Okay. The CDC back in March said, okay, folks, we're going to have you now. This is what Dr. Scott Jensen, who is the US Senator from Minnesota, who only 5 years ago was the Family Doctor of the Year, who's also the chair of the COVID committee for the United States, who also was saying, hey guys, I'm really disturbed by this. And that is the fact that the CDC back in March said, okay, every time somebody comes in there and they have liver cancer, this, that, you know, put them in the COVID category, put them in the COVID. So they're absolutely inflating.
And they're not being checked. They're not being checked. And they're getting more money.
They don't even have to have any symptoms. I mean, so he calls us out, and he even said, I started calling this out months ago, and because I started to see this bubbling on social media, where there's like this pushback, right? This backlash, because I started to see a bubble. And now he's had anonymous reports to the medical board, basically saying that he was putting out misinformation. He goes, I'm putting out the information from the CDC. I'm just putting out facts here from the CDC of how to designate a COVID case. Okay. And it is so broad and so broad sweeping that it's just like anything. You die of liver, you have a car accident, put them in the COVID category.
Correct.
And when you look at the overall statistics of deaths in America, there's not a huge spike. It's just like a normal year for the most part.
Yeah, no one ever quarantined for the flu, and nobody ever wore a mask, you know, for the flu. Only the people that are the most vulnerable people, and that is understood.
Right, exactly. So he was calling this out, and they have just desecrated his character, his reputation, his business. He's getting death threats. Yeah. And he said, ultimately, and this is again, a 35-year medical doctor, highly respected in the state of Minnesota, a US Senator, the chair of this COVID committee. And he said, if this is happening to me, I can only imagine what's happening to other people who are also trying to speak out. Because I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not the chair of this COVID committee. I'm not a US Senator, right? I'm a little old mayor. and exactly the backlash and how the backlash came about, by the way, through social media. And it's now spilling out into the physical streets, interestingly enough. And there's a lot of trolls and moles on social media. So
Of
this
course
is
there
also by
is. And all
design.
these stories of children that are dying and
Right.
infecting everybody.
Right.
I reached out to someone just recently and I said, do you know that person? No. Well, if you don't know that person, chances are they're a made up person.
Well, the thing is that this is my observation.
Okay.
Is that when we went into our stay-at-home orders and we all went into our homes, we underwent psychological warfare.
We did, and we still are going through it.
And this psychological warfare has been going on for decades. First, it's through our television, right, and then now ultimately it's through our computers, much more sophisticated. You have artificial intelligence, you have bots, right? You have trolls, and you have moles, and you have the algorithms. And what seems to have happened is that we went into our homes. Unprecedented moment in time. We have our screens, whether it's a child with their screen, the parent with their screen, whatever that an algorithm is, right? Whatever that artificial intelligence has been collecting on you is now being regurgitated to absolutely trigger you in your biggest point of fear, whether it's fear of death, fear of unknown, of not being able to put food on the table, provide,
Correct. It's
economic
all about
insecurity.
fear.
So when we came out, interestingly enough, a few weeks ago, everyone started kind of coming out from the stay-at-home orders. I was at a backdoor patio of one of our local restaurants, and people were walking out that I knew, and they're kind of walking around. They had this look of shock in their eyes, even like teenagers. And I was saying to my friend that I was having dinner with, I said, "Wow," I said, the look in their faces reminds me of when I went to Hurricane Katrina a couple times to do mucking out and rebuilding. And people were sitting there living in their cars or a tent next to a concrete steps that used to lead to their homes, right? And everything was gone, right? Their churches were gone, their grocery stores, their gas stations, their whole entire community was just eviscerated. And they had this look of shock in their face. And I said, this reminds me of the people from Hurricane Katrina, like their world's been tipped upside down. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're traumatized. We're traumatized.
Yeah.
We've been traumatized. Yeah. And when you've been traumatized, it's easy for you to be re-traumatized over and over and over again. And then ultimately what happens is you go into this fight or flight pattern, right? I'm a fighter. I don't roll up into a little fetal position. I fight. I stand up. I push back. Most people, especially now, are going into the fetal position or they're fighting. But what they're doing is they're fighting online and like, do what you're told. We're fear. We're in danger. We're in danger. Put your mask on. Shut up. Do as you're told. And
you're being selfish and
stop being so selfish. And what's happening though is that we're creating these online bar fights, is what I call them, right? I mean, people are just clobbering each other. And then we have a Google list that's been established by restaurant owners, and they're using it to target other restaurant owners that aren't complying with the guidelines. And now there's this, it's this snitch culture, this whole snitch culture that's been developed overnight in a very tight-knit, loving community.
Yes.
And and I have people saying, because I'm the lightning rod, by far, I've been the most, I mean, we've never seen anything like it, actually. I've been so vilified. I'm like, I'm so glad it's me, actually. I'm so glad it's me because I actually have the skin for it and I'm not going to take it personally.
Well, you've prepared your whole life for this. I mean,
I prepared my life.
Being the first woman to cross Alaska on her solo and I love your canoe story and building your own canoe. So that you have an amazing background. And one of the reasons that when I started researching you, I thought, I would have never had you over as a mayor in the classroom, but I would have had you over as an outstanding female, presence in our world, that you have done things that no other woman has been able to do. So either way, you were in the classroom. And so here's what I want to do, because this classroom is about solutions. We already know all the division that's happening. And so I want to give you a minute, because I had shared with you that I want to talk about my sponsors, and I want to give you a minute to kind of because that's what IM99 is for. It's to come up with solutions so we can stop this madness. Right. And so this is where, whether you go to the IM99 or whatever it is, and it's all bold, IM99. That's where you find it on Facebook. It's a hashtag IM99, all bold, no little a, no little m. But this is where, and one of the reasons that I've taken a stand with this position, and I have finally brought people that are crossing the line with the politics, is because it's the first time health has been politicized.
Right.
And they've divided us. So
Right.
with that in mind, I want to ask all of you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com, because we are being censored left and right,
Yeah.
demonetized left and right. And so we need to unite. We have to stop the fighting. We have to stop the fear. And
Right.
we've got to take a stand and be brave and say, no matter what, we're going to be taking care of each other. And that is what we will come together at whenyouneedafriend.com. Please subscribe, because we have got to spread the word of unity and peace. And so go to whenyouneedafriend.com, subscribe. You will get all of Reinette's information if you want to be a part of whatever solution that she's a part of, that we're all a part of. And so with that in mind, please like my social media, follow it. That's all you have to do. Is when you go to whenyouneedafriend.com, there's little buttons, and all you have to do is it'll take you right there. You don't even have to think. And then you can go to YouTube and subscribe there, because anytime we're live, you get a notification if that's what you choose. BitChute is where we're migrating to, because they won't censor us. And so right now, I think we're up to 29, but we need to bring it up, like we have been, little by little, bringing it up, so that if anything, if there's a shift, you still have the information that you need. And so please subscribe. Then the next thing I want you to do is go to my sponsors button and check out my wonderful sponsors who do not censor me, who will not censor me, because they wouldn't be my sponsor. So sponsors like Nori, that's Nutritional Oncology Research Institute. Wonderful, wonderful coach that will help people to heal the body naturally from cancer and other issues as well. Keep Me Safe Organics, that is keeping us free from toxins and chemicals, non-GMO, and it's organic beauty products, so that you put all these beauty products on your body and they are keeping you safe as well. We have First Alternative Care, that is 24/7 non-urgent medical and dermatology, and 3 hours a year of behavioral health counseling for the entire household, unlimited, for $45. And your household can be anybody that's living in your household. You could be college students, for all that matters. And the pharmacy of Merritt Island, who is doing wonderful things to keep you from taking a pill, maybe putting it as a topical. Live Longer Medical, just making us beautiful from the inside out. And of course, my alternative, my affiliate programs, Ground Therapy, which keeps us grounded, so important, especially when you're not outdoors. It's important to be grounded indoors. And last, I want to talk about Brain Tap. Brain Tap is doing a summit this weekend, and it's free. So if you go onto my website in the shop bag, you can click on it and go for free. Now, if you don't have this weekend to watch the summit and you want to have access to all of it, it's only $37 and you have it for life. So that is just, those are ways. And this Brain Tap rewrites the program in your brain. So if you have too much beta or theta or delta or whatever it is, alpha, it will help balance it. And it is a motivation on steroids. And so please support my sponsors the way they're supporting the class. But wait, there's more. You can become an enrolled student in the classroom, because our sponsors are hitting some hard times too. So please donate as much as you can, $1 a day or $10,000 in a month, whatever it is. You can be a part of the solution, so that this information, people like Reinette, that can come out and speak freely without worried about being censored. So please continue to support us, spirit, mind, and body, because without you, we are less than the 99%. So with that being said, I want to point you out to the foghornexpress.com. So if you haven't figured out, Reinette is the foghorn, and she is absolutely a lighthouse, a beacon of light, sharing truth to all of us who are confused. So with that, Reinette. Oh, and then you can follow her on Facebook. I'm sure you can get to her access to her accounts. Instagram and YouTube as well. So with that in mind, solutions.
Right.
Let's focus on solutions.
Right.
What can we do?
So first of all, people are saying this is about health, and it's not. It's actually politics.
Right.
It's about control, surveillance, data collection. If this were about health, people say, "Well, what would you do?" I said, "Well, if I were governor, what I would do is I would make sure, like in Japan and Korea, they hand out, vitamin C, vitamin D packets to the public. Make sure your immune system is boosted, right? Zinc tablets, of course, very important as well.
Oh, you're speaking my language. Okay.
Right. I would, so it's really about your internal environment, boosting that up, making sure you're going out there and you're getting your vitamin D. I would make sure that there's funds for all the different communities to ensure there's community organic gardens in all your neighborhoods. And then with that, you would also ensure that there were classes to teach those who really don't know how to cook healthy, to cook healthy, to make sure that we have what are called EBT, right? It used to be food stamps, but our EBT cards are also loaded up with enough money that you could actually buy additional organic food in a farmer's market. Our farmer's market does allow EBT cards to be utilized, but I would bump that number up.
They do in Florida. They do in Florida, I believe.
Fabulous. So right there, same thing. The other thing is too, is then going out there and just educating the public about how to reduce your stress and your anxiety, like having, public qigong, in the community squares, and just really making sure too that students have organic lunch, meals at school, not the crud that they're being fed for the most part. So there's so many different things you can do, and also making sure that people are just going outside, getting exercise, getting that vitamin D, right? Building up and boosting those antibodies. So at this point in time, really what we should be doing, and that's what I was saying, is like, look at guys, we are on the exact same trajectory we were 5 months ago, which is be in fear, be in lots of fear, stay home, social distance, don't touch anybody, put a mask on. And now we should be actually protecting the most vulnerable in the nursing homes, which are people are still being isolated, locked away. They are dying. I have friends who have lost their parents in these retirement homes and they can't get to them.
Correct.
This is horrific.
Well, first they were killing them with ventilators. Now they're killing them with isolation. I've reached out to different people in the community, reporters. They don't care. They can't report on it.
No, they're not reporting on it. It's horrific. And even we have a radio station here called KVMR. It's an alternative community radio station. It's amazing. We have a state-of-the-art radio station they built a few years ago. And we went to our local newspaper, the Union, myself, I'm a broadcaster. I have a radio show once a month. And the other broadcasters went to our local paper to say, hey, did you know that when this quarantine happened, that alternative radio station, the only alternative voice we have around here, shut their doors down immediately to all the broadcasters, changed the key codes. They can't get into the radio station. And our local alternative radio station has been closed since. They are playing old recordings of other shows and music. They have a few broadcasters who are broadcasting from their home if they can. It's highly limited, but our radio station immediately closed down their doors to their broadcasters, and our local paper has not done a story on that.
Wow.
Nobody, and when you tell the public this is going on, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, did you know our radio station closed down? They're like, what are you talking about? I'm hearing it. It's like, yeah, but it's not the regular broadcasting we used to have. Your alternative source has been silenced. And and the only thing they were playing regularly, this is really interesting, they closed down to the broadcasters. I used to have every third Wednesday of the month, noon, I used to do my show called Heads Up. And instead at noon, we have the Governor Newsom giving his daily broadcast, then followed by a woman named Pascal Fosholler.
You know what happened. They came in and bought some time.
Oh, they had to have done something. And then we have a local person who's now become the governor foot soldier, who's also going out there and even fear mongering on a local level, saying, you need to wear your mask, you need to wear your mask. And it's literally propaganda. And I have people here who came from Russia, who came from Croatia. And they have all, again, come to me saying, Reinette, what's happening right now, what's happening with your radio station, what we are seeing is what we escaped from 20 years ago. This is communism, right? This is socialism. This is the kind of stuff you don't want. And It is the kind of danger that we escaped from. And what we saw then is what we are seeing right now. And anybody has that kind of firsthand experience, I give them extra weight as far as listening to what they have to say, right?
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah.
firsthand
That PTSD is our body saying, warning, warning, warning. We need to
Right.
figure out a way
Right.
to join that
Right.
and heal that. And we have been, we have been divided so many different ways. And that's why
Right.
it's so important. And I want to add one more thing to the solution. I just had Dr. Lorraine Day in the classroom on Tuesday, or I guess it was on Tuesday. And I have been feeling, and I don't know about you, just disempowered. Like, I want to do something. That's why I'm doing the I'm99. And on the 25th of July, we're going to have a virtual meeting. So if anybody wants to be a part of that, you need to email me at lily@whenyouneedafriend.com. Or if you're part of the IM99, you just need to send me your email, because I need to invite you to be a part of that. But, I asked her, what she's doing. And I don't know if you know who Dr. Lorraine Day, but we could talk about that later. But Dr. Lorraine Day wrote letters to all the, the Bill Gates, the foundations, all the people that are obviously, we're seeing evil. We're actually seeing that there is a sinister plan for communism and to take over and take away the middle class and take away,
Right.
that happened to us back in 2007, when the housing crisis, we had to start all over again, and we were doing so well, and it didn't matter when one day it's all gone. It doesn't matter. And if you think that you have enough money now and they do this, you can lose it all. So she wrote letters basically saying that, to please reconsider, and it was a loving letter. She wrote a loving letter, but it was very strong, letting them know that we recognize that what they're doing is evil. And we know the end of the story.
Right.
We know that good wins.
Right. Right.
And she wrote this letter to all these different people. And she had mentioned who it was that she did. And I thought, you know what? Prayer, if we unite and we visualize that good wins over evil, united, if we unite and forget our differences and forget that I'm supposed to hate you now because you're not wearing a mask. If we just put that aside and say, we all want freedom. We have that one thing in common. We can hold on to that one thing in common. And so I just want to, for those of you who, I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about a spiritual connection that they're trying to destroy. So what would you like to say? Is there anything like you?
Well, I would say, actually, that's a good question. Like, how do we get on the same page? And luckily, I don't have to reinvent this wheel. What I've been doing is directing people to Dr. Pam Popper.
Pam Popper?
And, and she is out of Ohio. She's a medical doctor. She has an incredible medical team, legal team. She has a new website called MakeAmericansFreeAgain.com, MakeAmericansFreeAgain.com. And ultimately, folks, what this is coming down to is we're being held over a barrel for mass global vaccinations.
Correct.
And when people say, oh, I got my guns, you're not vaccinating me, I'm like, your guns are not going to work here.
No.
All you need to do is look at China and see what their social credit system is. And if you don't do as they say, you have this app on your phone, and if you don't have a little orange color rather than a green color, you can't leave your apartment, you can't get on a plane, a train, you can't get a student loan, you can't travel. I mean, it's horrific. So the thing is that what Pam Popper is saying, look, this is no longer about politics. This is one question and one question only you ask your elected officials or anyone running for a political position. That basically is, are you going to force mandatory vaccinations? I want to have free choice over my body and the body of my children.
If you can abort an 8-month-old baby, you can choose not to be vaccinated.
Right, exactly. So she really, it really comes down to one definitive question, which is around mass vaccinations, and that is whether that's how you figure out which team you're on. And people are sitting there going, oh, it'll never happen. They can't make me. I'm like, you guys, the system is already in place. If they could make how many billions of people in China, force them into vaccinations, force them to conform.
We need to
that is what it's on its way.
Take note.
So if you think that's not the case, all you have to do is look at Governor Newsom's secretive $1 billion mask deal with China. And once it got its OSHA approval just a couple weeks ago, 3 days later, we had a mask mandatory order.
Well, I tell you what, let's continue this conversation after our podcast is done. And for those of you, if you have time, if for those of you who are listening on podcast, just know that we have a teacher's pets conference after the class. And for those of you who, you're always welcome to ask questions. Just type in a Q and write your questions down. I know that this has been a very, very, I hope that this has been informative for all of you. And it's not about being right or wrong and all the trolls coming in. Anyone who has something negative to say about either one of us personal attack, you will be deleted. Anyone who has something that maybe it's a difference of opinion, that's fine. You're welcome to have a difference of opinion. It's a free country. And if I can have an opinion, so can you. Reinette, thank you so much for all you do. I really do appreciate you. I'm looking forward to the conversation after the podcast here. Please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Reinette Senum. What I messed that up. Wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Oof.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
So I just went over to, because I thought, this is a pretty controversial conversation that we're having today in the classroom. No comments on Facebook, none. This is rare. And we've had an audience the whole entire time. This is rare. Take a stand up. If you have a difference of opinion, you can share your opinion, but if you're going to attack, you will be deleted. And that is the way it is. We're not going to take it. I'm going to take a stand against being a bully. I love a conversation with a difference of opinion as long as it's respectful. And so then I switched over to YouTube, and I want to say thank you to Minnie. Thank you for coming on and saying this is refreshing to hear. Excellent conversation. And thank you both so very much. It's certainly informative and appreciated. That's wonderful. And thank you so much. I don't know if you're a student in the classroom unless you do a like or, if you make a comment. Oh, there we go. Really enjoyed this interview. Thank you, Trent, for being in the classroom today. If you have a question, if you put a Q, then I'll ask Reinette for you because she can't see this right now. So Reinette, you were in the middle of talking about China, and these are things that, and one of the reasons that I absolutely loved researching you is that your connection to history. And if we don't remember the past, and not remember it to be like, oh, I can't believe this happened to me and hold a grudge for it, going back to say, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. I'm going to make it better. And you have such a powerful, strong history with your grandfather, with, all the stories. You're a great storyteller. And so with that in mind, that if you look at China, and if you look at Venezuela, or you look at all these other places that were very prosperous, and all of a sudden, communism has taken over. Do you think for 1 second this can't happen to the United States of America? That's what they're hoping for, because everything that we're living today, we've seen in Hollywood, in movies, and we've been conditioned and desensitized. The pandemic movie shows exactly what's going to happen. So we're like living the movie. We're a part of the cast, like the Truman Show, except we're not getting paid. So would you like to show? Oh, I think you're muted again. I don't know why that's happened. So unmute yourself, please, Reinette. Okay, good.
Yeah, no, it's we're repeating history here. And again, people say, Reinette, just put your mask on. It's just for a little while. It's like, look at folks. I have no problem with wearing a mask. I've been wearing one for 35 years. But this is not for a little while. That's what I'm trying to let you know, is that this is being ratcheted down, just like when the Patriot Act happened, right? We never ratcheted that back up again, right? When TSA was put into place in the airports, they never ratcheted that back again. Once they ratchet down, they keep it down. So I'm like, this is not for a short span. And again, the stay-in-home orders are supposed to be for 2 weeks, maybe a month at the most. How many months in are we now? And so it's like, this is not for a short while. If I was getting any hint that it was, then I'd be fine. But that's not what's at play here. So then you have to look behind the scenes, and you have to look, as I said, Governor Newsom made a secretive $1 billion mask deal with China that the Dems and the Republicans didn't even know about. That was uncovered. And
where can we read that information? Because this is the first I hear about that.
Well, you can Google, it's out there. It's in mainstream.
Yeah, but you can't Google things anymore, because Google's first 20 pages now is like misinformation.
Yeah, you actually have to go many, many, many pages in. In fact, anytime somebody says, "Oh, I Googled it," I said, "Well, how many pages did you go in?" You only went into 20 pages down. You haven't seen the truth. And I mean, like me, you'll Google me, and my God, but you will get.
Oh boy, you are just so controversial, Lily.
They've been working on me hard for since 2014. They've been literally like trying to just discredit me online for a long time. It's pretty amazing. I take it as a compliment at this point. But the thing is that so we know. In fact, I just had lunch with a congressman here locally just a couple of days ago, and I talked to him about that. And I said, "Are you looking into this any further?" He's like, "It's really hard to, because the truth of the matter is Governor Newsom is really, really powerful, and so as far as like any kind of putting any criminal charges against him, highly unlikely. The Dems and the Republicans both have asked for more information, for transparency, and the governor will not give it. So once he did this,
how can that be? It is so blatant.
Oh, it's horrific,
blatant, and people are seeing this evil being played out, and nobody is saying you go to jail for what you did. And Cuomo is allowing people, sick seniors, to go back into nursing homes. The majority of the losses have been because of that. One of the largest states, highest states in that. And now Cuomo is trying to pin it on Trump. Like he's the one that's responsible for his actions. At what point do we take responsibility? And by the way, that is the one word in my classroom, is responsibility.
Right.
And that is a word that has had a bum rap. That means, oh, fine, I'll take responsibility, blame, shame, fault, duty. But responsibility is about ownership,
right,
empowerment, and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to take responsibility for their behavior, but they keep pointing the fingers at other people, but there are 3 pointed back at them. Right, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, so you have to really follow the money, and this is my sense. My brother lives in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm like, look at guys, World War III is not going to involve really tanks and guns, maybe not until really far into the war. But this is a psychological warfare that's been pushed onto us. And when you look at China, they're making a move all around the world, from Africa to Australia. They've been, making a move for many, many years. And in America, they own a lot of our assets. We're talking buildings and high rises and farmland and whole entire, neighborhoods. And it's just, they are making their move. And I don't know what Newsom thinks he's doing, but once they got that OSHA approval, which was, I think his brother was the one who got it. It was very difficult. They weren't getting OSHA approval with the masks. Once they got it, 3 days later, we were in a mask mandate. And I'm like, excuse me, but all of a sudden now masks are healthy and we're supposed to be doing this? It makes no sense. You have to follow the money. So my feeling is that basically you also have Google involved, you have Amazon involved with the social credit system in China. And to let people know what the social credit system is, if you're not familiar with this, is that basically they started this less than a couple of years ago, where you get a rating, and they start this in schools. So you get a certain rating, like a credit score rating. And if you are online too long, or you're surfing the wrong kind of websites, or let's say you're playing video games, or you have a relative who's a political dissenter, or you aren't eating the right kind of foods, or you're not paying back your student loan, or you're traveling places you shouldn't be, you get notched down, right? Your credit score goes down. Well, according to your credit score, if you have a low credit score, and 6 months ago, there was already 20 million Chinese residents who could not get on trains or planes because their credit score was too low. And so what happens is your world, if you don't go along and do as they say, your credit score goes down and your world becomes confined and confined and confined. Well, now it is so confined that you have to be vaccinated. You have to have this high score. And if you don't have a good score, you have this app. And this app is like, well, it's voluntary. You don't have to do this. You don't have to participate. I mean, you don't have to download this app. Well, if you don't download the app and get your little QR code there with your little score, you can't leave your apartment building. I mean, there's footage of this. We actually have news.
Jason Stevenson, he's from Australia too. And that was their mask. That was their mask. The app was their mask. If you don't download the map, you're holding this process down. And that was part of the conversation that we were having. This is Jason Stevenson Meditations. This is a person who has built,
Right.
about peace and meditation. And now he's being slammed because he's not going to download this app. So in Australia, that was the mask.
Right. So folks, that's China. That's China making the move. And I've been trying to warn people, like, this is not about health. These are war games. This is psychological war. It's a silent war. It's a technological war. It's a war of artificial intelligence, right? And algorithms. And this is if as long as you stay silent, you are consenting. And I understand how scary it is, and I'm happy to be that lightning rod. I'm happy to take all the crud, right? Let me take it. You can stand behind me. I'll take the arrows. I'm fine with that. But it's like, at some point you have to make a stand in order to stay free. And right now we have elected officials who are just the 1% of the 1%, and they don't care if they're working with China or they're working with some other nation. They're going to do whatever they want to do to gain more control, to gain more access to information, and to literally limit your freedom to move and do is what we're used to as Americans. And so this is, again, if this was about health, we would be making different decisions today, according to the data that we have collected over the last 4 months, right? But the problem is that the decisions we made months ago are the same decisions we're making today, which is stay home, self-quarantine, blah, 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 distance, cover your mouth. It's like, no, we should actually be adapting according to the information, the most recent information. That's not happening. What's happening is we're being ratcheted down more. So now we had our stay-at-home orders lifted. We went outside for a little while. Then they implemented, you have to wear a mask. Now we have these like, we're
not if you're writing. You don't have to wear a mask if you're writing. You don't have to practice social distancing if you're writing, because the germs and the viruses are that smart that they know they cannot be there.
I know. So now it's just you just watch this ratchet, and people are waking up. But I'm like, if you don't wake up fast enough, it's going to be so clamped down so quickly that you won't be able to wiggle out of this. And so that's why I've been willing to lose a lot of my friends, lose the love of my community, right? Step down from my position so I can call this out, because the truth is that I decided to be much louder than ever before. I did not want City Hall to be in the crosshairs, and they knew that they would be. And they've been very supportive, by the way, the staff and all of them, they're very, very supportive of me. The council seems to have sold their soul, and our county supervisors have sold their souls, but the staff are quietly in City Hall going, we don't know what's going on. This is crazy. And they realize how this is going to be the demise of their city and our economic stability. And these staff members may not even have a job a year from now, and will cease to be in a city, will be incorporated into the county. And so they understand and support me going out there and being loud, and they don't want to be in the crosshairs either. They have to, we got 500 letters from this last time page. And so that takes them hours, and it costs money. So I don't want them to either. But we have to make a stand and just understand that at some point, this is a fast moving train. But when we get to the other side of this, people will look back, and it's already happening now. If you're like, I didn't understand, but now I get it. Thank you so much, Reinette. So I am doing this in good faith that at some point people will realize what is really going on.
Yeah. And
we've been all conditioned. We've been programmed. So people can't see it right now.
Yeah, we need to unite, because even the people who are taking a stand, they're alone taking the arrows, but I'm standing next to you.
Yeah.
And Make American Free Again is standing next to us, but we're not next to each other. We have
Right.
got to unite as well. We have got to take every organization, every website, every Facebook group that is about freedom and protecting our rights. We have got to get together so that we build a wall of bravery.
Right.
And instead of being, I am 99, I am this person, I am that person, together we are amazingly strong.
Right. This is definitely a divide and conquer. That's exactly what this is about.
But even the people that are taking the bullets, even the
Oh, yeah.
people that are taking the arrows, we have got to unite too.
Oh, yes. Well, that's why, again, I'm getting along different shows, talking to different media outlets. Peggy Hall from Healthy American. She's in Southern California. She's the actual YouTube video I shared originally that kind of set this all off recently. But again, Make Americans Free Again. This is Dr. Pamela Popper. If you go onto YouTube, Dr. Pamela Popper, she has like the wellness website as well.
Mhm.
So she's the one who said, look at guys, there's just one defining question you need to ask your elected officials. It's not about being left, right, Republican, conservative, libertarian, progressive. It doesn't matter. It's a question, how the individuals, how your representatives answer these questions. And that's what you have to really do. So you set aside all the political wrangling that we get caught up into. When I make my stand, people literally will hear what I have to say. And then they'll say, oh, so what you're saying is you're voting for Trump.
Exactly. That is what people hear. Why would that be by voting for Trump?
Right.
It's like,
and then I have people saying, Reinette, stop being on these real conservative shows. You got to stop doing that. I'm like, no. Why are you telling me to continue the divide and conquer? The fact that I'm reaching out and conservatives and Republicans and progressives, we're all on the same page is actually a big thing.
we're all going to lose.
So why would you not want me to reach out to everyone out there who feels the same? Why do you want me just to speak to the progressives or the Democrats? And
Good for you.
yeah, so it's like, no, I'm going on everyone's show because this is not about, this should not be political. This should be about our health. And ultimately
Freedom
it's not about our health. It's very political, and our political leaders need to be called out for not actually calling this out themselves. That is their job. That should be their job. And they're not.
Outside of going and being the beacon of the voice, outside of that, are you planning to step into office? Are you trying to run for governor?
No, not right now. No, what I am doing though is I'm working with it was called the Defenders Alliance. And this is Sasha Stone, who I reached out to actually a couple of weeks ago. Sasha Stone, he has the International Tribunal. And the International Tribunal is justices from around the world. And they actually did a huge global tribunal around the whole global sex ring, child sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. And they actually had testimonies from people around the world. And this is an open case that's now closed. And that's actually led to a lot of arrests and things like that. And now they're going to be having an international tribunal around COVID, and I will be testifying on that. There's also what's called the Defenders Alliance. And this has been designed, and it's basically, we're looking at different right to free speech and health and civil liberties. And this is involving RFK Jr., Dr. Cahill, Dr. Buttar, Dr. Zach Bush.
That's wonderful.
Deepak Chopra. So these are individuals who are going to be addressing these issues. So basically what happened is I'm leaving my small little sandbox. It's just too small for me to do what I need to do. And my objective was to step out of it and go on to a whole different level to call this out as a former elected official, to speak to the system I saw in place government to allow this to happen. And even though I'm a small little lowly mayor in a little tiny town, I could see the inside system and how it works and how that messaging is happening and why this is happening, because the leadership is not there to question this authority, to question this narrative. And so my objective was quite clear, was to actually go out there and be a foghorn, a human foghorn, and call this out on a global platform and not just here locally. So I'm stepping out of this little tiny ring and I'm going into a bigger ring, and I'm willing to die for this. This is like, folks, we're at a do or die point. I've got nothing to lose at this point in time.
Yeah,
You can kill me, you can torture me, whatever, but I'm willing to make a complete stand because I see what's going on. I've seen it from the inside. I see what's going on the outside. I see all the different layers, and I have to call this out. So I stepped down so I could step up, essentially, is what I did.
I love it. And whatever I can do to help so that we can all work on this together, whatever I can do to help, because, I've been called many things because I stayed silent for 3 months and I did all the research. Judy Mikovits and Andrew Wakefield and Del Bigtree and a lot of the people that you mentioned have been in the classroom. And I started doing my own research, and I would like go and reach out to Del, or I reach out to, and I'm like, am I alone here, or is this, and then I would see, I'm not saying that he got it from me. I would see it confirmed in his class or in his show. And I would see, and I'm like, oh, at least I'm not the only one that feels this way. And then I finally, I had Judy back, after Plandemic, after that she was featured in Plandemic, she was back. And let me tell you, talk about, a woman who's gone through a lot. And during that time, now that I'm beginning to speak up, because my commitment was no politics, no sports. That was my commitment. Only responsible living. That was it. And I was told, you're ruining your brand. You shouldn't do this. You should, and I hear it. But this is the first time I feel that it's crossed over. It is crossed over. And we do need to be responsible in our vote, with our vote. We do need to be brave with our vote. And that's how I've justified it. I've had people that have followed the classroom because they feel that this is a safe place. They don't have to deal with politics. They don't have to deal with any of that. And you still don't have to deal with it.
Right.
Because we're talking about freedom. We're talking about our First Amendment, the right to, to assemble peacefully, the freedom of speech. And I said, when Facebook started censoring people, this was a couple of years ago, when they started censoring, I said, for the first time, Reinette, I felt I could wear a uniform. I feel fighting is a lose-lose situation. And in many cases, it's created to make money. Think about all the money. You said earlier, think about the money of all the masks that people are buying, money for all the testing that's being done. All these people are gaining money. They're gaining profits. And so, but yet our rights are being diminished because people are fearful. And we will give up our rights because we want to feel safe.
Right.
And we're trusting. It's an illusion, just like the Truman Show. It's all illusion. Right. And so I remember that morning saying, this is the first time I would go to battle. And people started calling me names and vain. They don't know who I am. They don't know my heart. They don't know, but they felt that was the way to shut me down, to troll me, to do all these things. And I said, if I'm willing to take a bullet for this, you can call me whatever you want, because I'm taking a stand. And I hope that all of you join us, join Reinette, join Dr. Popper, but all of us together, not, now we're going to divide the 99 that we've gathered because we're going to be following other people who are doing the same thing. No, we all need to unite all these voices, because alone we're only one person, right? But together we're an overwhelming majority.
Well, and this is an interesting stat I like to share with people too, is that we know about the tipping point. Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, came out like 15 years ago or so, about how in order to create a cultural shift, you have to reach 15 to 20% of the public, right? To create a
critical mass.
What ends up though, that in order to topple a dictator, in order to be successful in a war or civil rights movements, right? Anything like that, all you need is 3.5% of active participation.
Wow, you got me in there. And it looks like Victoria's also says she's taking a stand. Thank you, Victoria.
Yay.
Who else is joining us in this? Right. It doesn't have to be a fight. It doesn't have to be a fight.
And it doesn't have to be all of us. We feel we have to convince everybody. It's like, no, guys, All you need is 3.5% of
Wow,
active
that's good news.
It is. So that in my town is 109 people. In California, that's like 1.1 million people. In the United States, it's just over 11 million people. And if we all are actively participating and we're on the same page with the same message, and that's why I go back to this Dr. Pam Popper, she has the ability for us to all ask our elected officials the exact same question. It was basically, it's like, you know, are you going to protect me from having me and my family members, you know, having to be forced into a vaccination? If your elected official says yes or no, that's the defining moment right there for your elected official.
Yeah, but what if they flop? What if they switch?
Well, they might, but you know,
It wouldn't be like a politician to flop or
that's true,
switch.
that's true, but then you do a recall, right? And the thing is that once you get enough politicians who are like, oh, hey, I won't force this on you, then the other politicians will get the message, right? I mean, that's the thing is, again, it's just 3.5%. So we don't have to sit there and go, oh my God, I got to convince the whole world and wake them all up. You don't. You just need to activate that percentage in your population, your community. So look at your community. How many people do you have? 50,000, a million, whatever it is. It's a simple calculation. And all of a sudden it doesn't seem that overwhelming because we are intended to be overwhelmed and consumed by this.
That's great news.
Give in because you just can't. Reinette, I have people say, Reinette, you can't fight the mask. Just wear the mask, Reinette. I'm like, you don't understand what's behind the mask. I would if it was just the mask and our health, but it's not that. It's an illusion, and it's time to wake up. And what's happening is we are waking up. That is why the system is clamping down on us, putting us behind masks, right? Separating us so that the only way we can communicate is through the screen. So that way the AI can collect that data, right? Do its algorithms, do its analysis and feed it back to us and keep us in that fear and separated. Don't do it. And all you have to do.
We don't have to do it. We don't have to do it. That's the thing.
Right. Just take the mask. I'm telling you. For those who are wearing a mask, understand that when you're looking at other people, because people now are looking at each other and they have the suspicion, right? They're like, they can't read you. They don't know who are you and are you my friend or my foe? They can't
see your smile. Yeah.
Well, I can't see your expression, right? That's by design. That's the separation. Let me tell you something. When you go into a grocery store, you have to remember when you're looking at that person's eyes, understand they're probably in the same fear, the same confusion, the same illusion as you, right? Just try to have the compassion, not the anger, but just remember that when the day comes that you pull down that mask, it is actually the most defining moment probably in your life where you are saying, no, I do not consent. You do not have my permission. And I guarantee you folks that someday after we take those masks down, we're going to all look back and we go, that's it.
That was our defining moment.
It was that simple. Yeah. That little tiny, I'm like, yes, that little tiny powerful action is going to have a domino, a ripple effect throughout the whole entire planet and the rest of our future and for generations. It's a tiny little move, but it is a monumental statement. And just remember that when you pull that down and when you do pull that mask down, whether you're in a grocery store somewhere where there's others, just feel what it feels like in your heart. And understand there's much information you're getting over here saying, oh, no, it was fear, being feared. It's all dangerous. Here's all the studies, the information, the experts. You'll equally have that information over here. Let me tell you something. There's so much information on both sides, right? That at some point you have to let go of it all and tune in.
Tune into your intuition. Yeah. Yeah.
And ask yourself, how does this make me feel? And that's what we're left with, folks. Once again, we're back to our own intuition. And that's what we have to actually tap into, and our children have to tap into, and our elders have to tap into, is that to sit there and go, well, I know, I hear the experts are speaking here, they're speaking here. It's like, no, guys, you got it on both sides. At some point, you got to listen to this. And that's what I've been doing too, is I've been listening to this and my gut's been like,
I did from the beginning. It didn't make sense because we've never done this.
No.
We've never done this. This is the common flu is COVID-19. Maybe it was altered and it is we have the patent for it. We have a lot of patents for all this warfare, this viral warfare that they've created. You cannot patent something that's naturally occurring. You can patent a combination of things. Right. You can patent a recipe. You can patent a name. but
Right.
you cannot patent something like vitamin C. You can't patent vitamin C. You can't patent. So we've got to stop and say, okay, now I do want to say something here, because I know that there are people who cannot take the mask off because they are very vulnerable. We're
Right.
not talking about that
No,
kind of
no,
mask wearing.
no.
We're talking, if you need to wear a mask because you are sick and you are vulnerable, and that's what the doctors told you to do to protect yourself, please, let's not make that a political
Right.
statement.
No, this is not about the elderly. This is not about the immune compromised. People who know that they have to wear the mask for their own health, you wear your mask.
Yes.
But for the healthy American, the children, for God's sake, who should not be wearing masks at all. Only a few months ago, they were saying children should not wear masks, and now they've mandated it in schools. It's insane, right? That's
It
where
makes me
you
want to
gotta-
cry.
Yeah, you're hearing it both ways, right? And at some point, you just got to say, okay, I've got to intuitive this one and just say no, or my mama bear has to come out and say no, not on my child. So yeah, so we have to start doing that, and so we know how to protect the vulnerable. We know how to protect.
We've done it all along.
Doing it every flu season, we do it. We need to do that again. And we also, what we need is leaders who are going to make sure that we have programs and funding in place to ensure that we're as healthy as we can be, whether it's a lunch program in the schools or making sure that we have the EBT cards stocked up so you can go to the farmer's market, or we're giving classes on how to cook healthy for those who never were taught
I
how
love
to cook.
those.
In the first place,
Yes. Keep
right? Or making sure that there's exercise classes out there for free out in the town square. This is what real leadership is about. But the leadership we have right now is a faux leadership, and it is a dangerous leadership because it is a silent leadership. So again, I go back to Dr. Pam Popper, great woman. She's got her team together. She's got that one defining question. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. You just ask that question, and that is the defining question. And we move on from there, because ultimately, folks, this is about, again, not your health to get you vaccinated for your health. They want you vaccinated to track you everywhere you go.
Correct.
Again,
And there's also artificial intelligence that's in there that will, I know this sounds like science fiction. And the reason why it sounds like science fiction is that because the movies and science fictions has been conditioning, desensitizing us, so that when we hear about it, we go, oh, okay, well, I want to be a zombie. I want to, you know.
I know that. I saw that in that Hollywood film. I saw that. Yeah,
it ends well.
They condition you to normalize it. So you see it enough times, like, oh, we knew that was going to happen. We've watched a lot in Hollywood for 10 years. So they normalize it. They make you accept it. You saw it. Oh yeah, I've been watching that movie. Nothing you do, you can't stop it. And when I hear people say that, oh, Reinette, you can't stop it, I'm like,
watch me. Watch us. Watch us.
Yeah, you are still a sentient, sovereign being. And as long as you have the capacity to say, I do not consent, you don't have to accept this. So please don't tell me that this is like, we have no other option here. But yeah, we are in a defining moment in history, folks. And I understand why it's really, really scary to speak out. But again, what you need to do is just talk to your friends and neighbors, understand that they're all coming from a place of fear. They're all coming from a place of being programmed. This is psychological warfare, my dear friends. That is why people are so triggered and not behaving normally like we're used to, because we've all been triggered. Our biggest fear has been identified and triggered while we were locked away in our stay-at-home orders. So there has to be a lot of compassion, but you have to be willing to be a warrior, because the world that we have all known for our whole lives is not going to be our future if we continue to do this. And while I'm very concerned for those who are vulnerable and who are at the end of their lives, I'm equally concerned, if not more concerned, for those who are just beginning their lives and don't have the same opportunities that you and I have always assumed would be there for generations to come. Mm-hmm. So this is, again, psychological warfare. Our leaders know it. They don't care. They're participating in it. And this is the other thing, really important. Dr. Leonard Hardell is a hero of mine, and he's a gentleman who is a doctor, researcher, and it took him many, many years to convince the World Health Organization that Agent Orange is a cancer-causing agent.
They knew that.
So extensive research, right, to convince the WHO of this. Interestingly enough, there were, of course, the companies out there, the chemical companies spraying Agent Orange, and there's this one defining question that identifies whether or not you are committing crimes against humanity. And this question is a question that we can pose to every elected official out there, right? Every person who is in a place of leadership. And this question is this: what did you know by when? What did you know by when? And this is a question we need to start asking our elected officials. And to let you know, if you really want to nail people, what you do is you go through the court system, you get an attorney, and you make sure that you give them this big old pile of peer-reviewed information, and you go through the courts and you make sure that that is delivered to them, it's registered, it's in their possession. And once it's in their possession, this information that lets them know that if you continue this, you're acting like a war criminal, you're committing crimes against humanity. And if you continue to make these decisions that are crimes against humanity, you are now going to be held responsible. And so we now have to ask our elected officials. We can send the information to them, we can make public comments, we can educate them, but we can now start asking them, what did you know by when? Because what we are seeing here, Lillian, what we are seeing are war crimes. These are war crimes. They may not involve bombs and tanks right now, but these are crimes against humanity. This is a mis and disinformation campaign. It is costing lives. It is absolutely reducing the vitality of our local economies, our overall well-being, right? Our hope in our future. These are crimes against humanity. And this is the question I posed to my council when I made my exit. I said to them, we are going to be asking all of you in your elected positions and your positions of leadership, what did you know by when? And we are going to be holding all of you accountable in the very near future. And that's where real leadership steps in. And you don't have to be an elected official to go ask those questions. You can actually step into that kind of leadership, and you can just do it with a few small group of friends, 3.5% of your population in your community, right? You can go out there, you can prepare the documentation around what's really going on with COVID. You can actually register that, hand that to your elected officials, give it to them, and then say, okay, you're going to keep making those kind of decisions. We have to ask you the question, what did you know by when? And now we're going to hold you accountable.
I love it. That's a great part. I mean, we could talk about this probably for hours because there's so many things. I mean, there's this morning. Okay, I'm just going to go out. This is just a hypothesis. It's just my intuition speaking to me this morning. I've been doing a lot of research, and I know you have too. I know a lot of people have too. But for some reason, I feel I need to be brave.
Right,
So
right.
I'm going to go say it. And I don't know if this is, but I'm not going to name names because I don't want to go to that place right now. But that percent, that 1%, that what if they bought China? What if it's them still? And we're focusing on China. But what if that 1% has bought everything? Bought Hollywood, bought China, bought all these organizations that are out there rioting, and it's all an illusion.
One big, yeah, I'm guessing it is actually. You know, our nations, our national boundaries, right? That only applies to us citizens. It doesn't apply to the bankers. It doesn't apply to the corporations. It doesn't apply to the shippers, right? It doesn't apply to Amazon. It doesn't apply to them, right? These boundaries are for you and me only. And the 1% of the 1%, they're all playing the same game. And they don't care if they're working with China or Russia or Israel. It does not matter. They're all in cahoots.
Correct.
So yeah, so it's the 1% of the 1%. And
The 1%
they're
of the
all
1%.
They're wanting this one world dominance. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Again, if that weren't the case, our decision makers would be making different kinds of decisions.
Yeah.
And so all you need to do is look at what it is that they're supporting. And they're supporting lack of freedom to move, more surveillance, more tracking, right? More government interference, right? And
More division. I mean, like you said, you've lost some friends. And that's the sad part of this is that, and we're going to be doing, again, I'm going to mention Dr. Lorraine Day. She was just on Tuesday, and we decided we're going to do a Bible study. We're going to do a Bible study on the book of Revelation. This has nothing to do with religion, but we're taking the original Bible, not the one that's been interpreted and hacked so that you believe that you're powerless.
Right.
And so we're going to do a Bible study. And one of the things that I just think is the book of Revelation. They've said that this is where it's going to go. This is where the end of the story. We've got the playbook. Well, my thing is, okay, what can we do to keep that from happening? I don't believe for 1 second that we are supposed to just lay down and take it.
No.
And all of a sudden go, man, I knew exactly what's going to happen and I still didn't do anything about it. And that's the conditioning that we have been under over the last 100 years.
No longer.
Not
Yeah.
going to take it anymore.
Right.
And I love that taking off the mask,
Mhm.
even though they've politicized it, they've villainized it, taking off that mask will be our symbol.
It is.
You know?
It's very symbolic. That's why people are like, it's just a mask. I'm like, it's not just a mask.
Yeah.
Trust me, if it was, I've been wearing a mask for 35 years. I have nothing against a mask. It's what's behind the mask. In fact, I'm doing a weekly podcast. I just did a little quick intro yesterday, a live Facebook feed and live stream. And basically I just said, look, at my show's called The Great Unmasking. And my objective is to actually bring the local issues, the localized current hot button issues.
Love it.
And what I want to do is bring in regional, national, global experts to address our local issues. Because even though they're local, they're global, right? They're happening in communities around the world and around the nation. So it's called The Great Unmasking because it's really about uncovering
Love it.
and the lies that have been misleading us and getting to the bottom of it. And again, it's about that. It's about making sure that there actually is the alternative voice out there, right? We're only hearing one side. The media only tells you one side of the story.
Yeah.
And there is something called the fairness doctrine that Reagan eviscerated years ago, which is that the media and the press were required by law to give you both positions, different positions, right? Opposing views.
Correct.
That was law. That was the fairness doctrine, and that was removed, right? So we had that, and once that happened, that was a slippery slope. And then on top of that, in 2012, the Smith-Mundt Act also was destroyed. The Smith-Mundt Act made it illegal for the US government to propagandize against Americans on American soil. They could propagandize against Americans on foreign soil, but not American soil. Well, once that was removed in 2012, it was actually in 2014, I started to see this real surge of fake news and news sites that were actually supposed to be satirical, but they're actually just malicious. And even locally here, they were very much targeted towards me. I was like their number one person. And that's continued since. But that was because something out there in the systems got the permission, right, to go out there and propagandize against my own community and create fake news, fake information to formulate their minds, right, to make them think a certain way. And we have been subjected to this type of psychological warfare for many years now. This has been a buildup, folks. This has been going on.
This is a long plan. This is a
long-term plan.
Yeah.
I even have people saying, well, why would China do this to their own people? If they did release it, or they let it go, or they let it become more virulent, why would they do that to the millions of their own citizens? I'm like, are you kidding me? This is China. If you get out of line, they'll harvest your organs, for God's sake. And they're looking long game here, right? Long term. They're looking 100, 1,000 years out. They don't care if they reduce their population by 50 million or 100 million. They don't care. They're looking long term. So we have to start realizing that this is a chessboard, right? And there's some serious chess moves going on right now. And people have to be aware that this is not just about our health. If it was about our health, our elected officials would be making very different decisions. This once again is about this one world dominance. Oh, folks, we ran out of coins. We're not making coins anymore. That's been happening now. Oh gosh, we don't have any coins, guys. Sorry, we're having a coin. You're having a coin shortage now. Well, that's just absolutely.
I know. I'm hoarding my coins.
I know. Well, they're gonna, at some point they're gonna be saying we're not taking them anymore. Go to your card or go to your chip. It's like, you guys, you have to be seeing the slippery slope. But again, we are in complete fear. We've been programmed. We've undergone psychological warfare. People aren't in their right minds. They're not thinking. So there has to be a great deal of sympathy. I've had some amazing nastiness come my way. I've never seen anything like it.
Mm-hmm.
And in spite of it all, I'm not really taking it personally, which you think I would.
No, but you know what? I was going to say this. Anytime we read something that is like makes our hair stand up, or it's a vicious attack on you, or I would say you just need to stop, take a breath, and say, "This is not about me.
It's
This
not
is
about me.
about them.
Yeah, it's
It's
about, yeah, it's
about
not about
them."
me. Yeah, it isn't.
Have
And so,
compassion for that person. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So ultimately, it's like, I know people are going to come around someday and go, oh my God, I'm so sorry, Reinette, because it's already happening. I have people who the last year have been vilifying me. And just in the last week, two of the biggest people doing this quietly came to me 24 hours apart and said, Reinette, I haven't agreed with you all the time, but I just want to say thank you so much for all that you've done for this community. I want to say thank you so very much for stepping up and doing this difficult job of calling this out, because you've now become my hero.
Wow.
And these are people who I was a villain to them 2 weeks ago, right? It's kind of crazy. And this happens. I have a pattern of this throughout my whole life. And so I know that's going to happen, but my concern is that by the time that people do wake up and say, oh my gosh, Reinette, we're done, we're toast. So time is of the essence. We don't have the luxury of getting to the other side and go, oh gosh, Reinette, you were right. I'm so sorry. It's like, no, once we get there, you won't even be having the opportunity to even speak your mind any longer. And if you do, you'll have this social credit system in place like they do in China. And by the way, Google and Apple have been working with the Chinese government on it. So I just want you all know that Silicon Valley even announced 6 months ago, oh, hey guys, we're working on, the United States owned social credit system. Isn't this great? And I was like, what? They announced it proudly, right? So they've been working with the Chinese government to institute that here throughout America and the rest of the planet. I'm like, you guys, again, you want to know what your future looks like on this current trajectory, just look to China. That's what's coming at you. Are you okay with that? Are you comfortable with that? And I hear people say, well, people in China wear masks all the time. It's like, well, first of all, do you want to be living in China? And when they wear their masks, it's usually because they're going through some highly polluted street from one building to another, and they put their mask on, or they have a cold or a flu, and they're trying to hold back, that virus. But they don't wear their mask 24/7. And when they're working 8-9 hours a day, they usually don't do that unless they're in some kind of slave labor, right? Then they wear that mask all the time. Is that what you want? Is that the kind of world you want for your children? Because that's what you're bringing on. And parents, especially parents, mama bears, hello. You got to speak up, because right now, in a matter of just a few weeks, parents are not believing this. They keep thinking, oh, it's not going to be that bad. They tell me this. These children are going into a prison-like setting.
Condition them young. I've always said, teach a child how to eat well when they're little, so that we will end disease in the future. Yeah. Now they're conditioning our children to be slaves from youth, so that when they get older, we will.
And to fear one another, to fear hugging, right? To fear being close to each other, to fear, touching one another, right? To be afraid of your neighbor, that your neighbor might do something that's going to get you killed, right? Or your coworker. And it's just like, wow, to make us psychologically so afraid of each other, you're literally going to compartmentalize us in these invisible prisons. Is that the world you want your children to be living in? Is that the world you want to be living in? And I keep going back to, when we go out there, I'm walking around in my town and we're still in this prison. We still can't see each other. We can't have a face-to-face connection at all any longer. And the only way we can is if we have this screen. I'm like, is that the kind of world you want to be living in, where there's this middleman here always taking all that data and information and then using it against you? That is the world that we are entering into, and you staying in your silence. I know it's scary. I know it's scary to speak out, but I have to tell you folks, it's going to be much scarier going into that world, right? That you did not try to stop. It's going to be far scarier than just making the good fight right now and making the good stand. And again, you don't have to blast out to everybody. You can go out there and find that 3.5% of your community who's willing to strategically push back, intelligently push back, and call your leaders out and hold their feet to the fire.
And I love that question. What did you know by when? What did you know by when? Okay, we have one question before we go. I want to honor, and I'm telling you, Reinette, we could probably do about 4 hours here, but time is, I want to be honoring of your time. And also I've got some meetings I need to do. Okay. So the question by Trent is, who are they that they are conspiring to control the world? How do they collude with one another? what is their purpose? Oh, I think we've covered that. How do we get rid of them, or do we have to convert them?
Okay, good question. So I'd say the 1%, the 1%, right?
1%, 1%, correct.
International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, right? So this is old.
And Harry Vox says it's the Israeli
Yeah,
intelligence.
the Zionists. I mean, it's right. They're all in cahoots. So it's the wealthiest of the wealthy. And then basically, how do we get, well, you don't play along by their terms, right? You don't do as they say. You just simply say, I do not consent. And I even say that when there's like a bad feeling in the air, or I feel like there's weird negative energy, I'll just literally say, you don't have my consent. You do not have my permission. It's also, I think this is very much a spiritual war as well, by the way. It's not just a physical war. So you just don't consent. And part of that is you're putting a mask on. If it were about health, I'd be right there. I would support it. But it's not. It's you saying,
it's not Ebola.
I'm consenting. This is okay with me. You can do more to me. You can do more to my children. It is a symbol. It is signaling. And when I think people are like, well, it's virtual signaling. Look how good I am. I really care about you. I'm like, no. You're not virtue signaling to me. You're signaling to those who are most powerful that they can continue on the exact track that they're on. You're saying that you can do more and it's okay. And that's what I'm talking about. The mass is extraordinary because it really also separates us and divides us. It creates this otherness, an environment of otherness. And so it's really about not consenting and not going along and not going in that fear. And that entity, that darkness that we're fighting against, it feeds off of fear. Correct. It feeds off of your worry. Don't give it to them.
Yeah.
And when you go out there, take that damn mask off and smile big and take care of your internal environment, right? Make sure that you have the antibodies and you're going out there getting your vitamin D and you're eating well and breathing fresh air. And that's how you fight this. You just say, no, I'm not doing it. Yeah. And I have to tell you, the times that I've gone into a store and there's people running around with their masks on and they see me without a mask. I've had some friends that have the same thing happen to them. They'll see me without a mask and they'll go around the aisle and they'll go like this and they'll take their mask off. Oh. Right. So here I am, one person, not saying a word. And I walk into a grocery store and I don't have my mask on. And somebody will see that and they're like, oh, God darn it. And they'll take their mask off. Now I had another incident happen where I went to a pet store. I didn't know how they're going to be. I had to go in. I had my mask just in case. And I went around, didn't have it on. And then I got to the grocery clerk or the store clerk. And I just kind of put my mask like on my ear, like if I have to.
Like Joe Biden.
there was a person checking out, an older gentleman with a mask on, with a younger woman with no mask. I knew her and she knew me. And she looked at me and she saw I had this mask just hanging from my ear. She didn't have a mask on. She's ready to check out. She saw that I had a mask hanging on my ear and she was like, oh, and she literally raced out, went to her card, came back and she goes, oh, I forgot to put my mask on. And me just having that hanging on my ear signaled to her, you need to put your mask on.
Wow.
I was horrified, but I clearly saw the impact of my decision-making, the domino effect of if I have a mask on, if I don't have a mask on. So sometimes you can rebel silently, and just by not wearing the mask and conforming, and again, it's not about I'm trying to go out there and kill people. I don't care about your health. That is not the case. I care so much about your health and your well-being. I'm willing to go out there and take this kind of heat. But all you need to do is go out there, be true to yourself, don't wear that mask, and you're signaling to other people that I'm standing in solidarity with you. Don't be afraid, take the mask off. And so when you ask, how do you combat that? It's a simple way as that, just take the mask down, take it off. Yes, and if you were somebody who's elderly, who's immune compromised, who's not well, put your mask on, right? You do it selectively.
Yeah.
You do it selectively.
Like we've done in the past, like what's always been done.
Right.
And then again, and if you feel that negative emotion well up in you because they're either are wearing a mask or they're not wearing a mask, or they're doing something that you feel like you need to snitch on them, or, all these things that you feel you're feeling, and ask yourself, why?
Yeah.
Why do I feel this way? Yeah. Because I have a right, just like they have the right. And so we may not like what they're saying, but this is part of what we are taking a stand for. Right. I don't want to say fight, because I don't agree with fighting. Right. I really believe in taking a stand and having these discussions that will lead to a good decision that's made from love as opposed to fear, because fear is not of God. Fear is not of God. And the moment you feel fearful, I'm not saying that you're about to fall off a cliff. That's kind of like a healthy fear. That's an evidential fear.
Right.
I'm talking about the kind of fear that you get when someone says you have cancer, even though you had cancer for 10 years prior to that. They say, oh, now you don't have a minute. You got to go do this and you go do that. And they fear. That's all about fear.
Right.
And so all I'm saying is be your own barometer, be your own self-cleaning oven, and say, I need to be about me. Let them do what they need to do right now. And I will lead by example.
Right.
And not say, force them to do what they don't want to do, and be open to have these conversations. But like I said, anyone who tries to assassinate the character of Reinette or myself in this, because I know that this is going to have a lot of comments maybe later on when people wake up or when people are watching this later on, I will tell you, I am going to delete you, because if you don't have a face and you're not taking a stand and all you're doing is bullying and being mean-spirited just because you want to be, not tolerated. I do not consent. And I agree with you, Reinette, that we have got to be about what we want.
Right.
And what we want is free will. Yeah. What we want is freedom, because, if someone says, oh yeah, just go out and murder somebody because that's free will. No, that is against the law, So those examples I was given that, oh yeah, you go run your car, go drink and run your car and drive it. That's freedom. That's free will. No, that's against the law.
You're not trying to do harm to each other. And again, we're looking at this more deeply. There is great harm being done on the current trajectory, and wearing masks is not going to save you from dying someday. That mask is not the line between life and death. It's a falsehood, right? It's an illusion. It is a symbol to divide us, right? It's a wedge. It's actually
a new division. Yeah.
And I'm just saying, don't fall prey to that. Be aware of what it's being used as. It's not being used for your health. It's being used against you. It's weaponized.
Yeah.
And our media has been weaponized. The medical system has been weaponized, right? And the masks, right? And the free choice, the right to choose has been weaponized against us. Yeah. And so don't play into that. Don't allow this to be weaponized, and again, trust your own intuition, because, we're hearing it on all sides. How do you know right from wrong? We're now to a point where it's so bad. There's so much static out there that you're literally left to go back to your own intuition and your own heart. How does that sit with me? How do I feel about that? Right. And you have to tune into that nowadays, because otherwise it's just too much static out there.
Intuition with proper information.
Right.
Because when you're feeling that fear, you're not getting that proper information.
No, you're being triggered. And that's by design.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm going to have to say that this has been such a wonderful conversation. I'm glad that we had this conversation today, and I hope that you, my viewing friends, will make that decision too. You're the only one that can decide. You're the only one that can choose if you're going to take a stand and be brave. And and if you choose to wear a mask, that's your own choice. But don't be nasty if people decide not to wear a mask. And so you will know your 33% or your 3.3%.
3.5%.
3.5%. You will know your 3.5% when you see their smiles, because you'll be able to see it. So Reinette, thank you so much for the work you're doing. Please know I am joining. We're joining you in whatever. And remember that, yes, it's about politics and all that, but spirit, mind, and body, it all works together. And so I'm very grateful that you are such a huge, powerful force. You're a lighthouse, and the flashlights are going to try to dim your light, but don't let the flashlights tell you can't be a lighthouse. So with that in mind, We're going to say goodbye. Thank you for all of you that have been in the classroom today and for just spread this information, spread this. I know it's going to be a long, I want to see if maybe we can cut it into two different segments, but it's a conversation that needs to be had.
That's right.
And so grateful. So make sure you share this, that you like it, you promote it, make it go viral, because we've got to wake up. Wake up and take a stand and be brave. Okay, so it's time to say goodbye to all our friends, our fans, and thank you so much for sticking it out for 2 hours. We love you. We love you. And